Hello, you're tuning into UniTunes, the show where we seek to showcase the sounds of Australian music. I'm Fynn, and today we're stoked to be chatting to Ali George. Thanks so much for joining us on the show. How are you doing today, Ali?
Thanks, guys. I'm really excited to be here. I'm doing good, doing good.
We're super excited to have you. Now, this episode of UniTunes is an extra special one, as we're also joined by a guest host, FBI presenter, and my very good friend, Gabriella. So, welcome to UniTunes, Gabby.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm Gabriella. I'm very excited to be here on UniTunes. I'm a big fan of the show and very much looking forward to chatting, Ali.
Cool. So before we get into it, we want to acknowledge and pay our respect to the traditional custodians and the land we're on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. Now, Ali George is a very talented indie singer-songwriter from here in Sydney. She describes herself as an honest and occasionally dramatic overthinker who writes about falling in love, falling apart, and everything in between. And at the time of recording, Ali is about to release her latest single, Beat Up Car. But before we talk all about it, can we hit you with some rapid-fire questions?
Let's go. I'm into it.
All right, let's do it. So, firstly, how would you explain your sound in just 3 words?
Honestly, honest. Rapid question. Honest, I would say maybe a little bit dramatic. I mean, it's kind of in my bio, isn't it? And dancey, I guess.
Cool. All right, so you're on a desert island and you can only listen to 3 artists for the rest of your life. Who are you choosing?
It'd have to be Moona. It's one of my favourite bands. I'd have to say Bruce Hornsby and The Range. And probably Mr. Higgins.
Awesome. What's one album that you can't get enough of recently?
I listen to so much. I've listened to so much lately. Actually, right now, I'm so obsessed with Doechie's new album. It's been on replay like since the last few weeks.
Amazing. Grammy winning now.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your unpopular opinion about music?
Unpopular opinion. It's gonna sound harsh, but I reckon it's all the same. It's subjective. You know what I mean? Like everything is good, everything is bad. It's up to the person. It's subjective, which is what I love about it, I guess, which is the weird thing.
Yeah, interesting. That's one of the most unique unpopular opinions we've gotten. So that's all right. Last rapid fire question. You're doing great. If you have to nail it down to one, what's the most memorable gig you've been to?
That I've been to. I would probably say Moona when they came to Oz last. I caught them at where was it? Metro, I think, maybe. I can't even remember now. But it was just fantastic. Everything was so cool. Musicality, the sound, the performance, everything was just fantastic.
Great. Well, that brings us to the end of the rapid fire questions. Awesome. Cool. So let's ask a little bit about you as an artist, Ali. When did you start creating your own music?
That's a good question. I have been on and off music for a really long time. I kind of started playing guitar, as a little kid, as I'm sure most music lovers do. They pick up an instrument. And then I kind of left it for a really long time. Didn't really stick with it. Got back into it and joined a band, kind of mid to late high school. And then only recently, as of maybe 5 years now, I decided to kind of do a solo project, which is never really on my radar, never really something that I wanted to do, quite honestly, because I'm not good by myself. I'm very good in a band. But yeah, it's been kind of a long journey and long tumultuous relationship with music, I would say.
Yeah, cool. And you've mentioned that you've got a lot of experience working in bands, and doing a solo project is this kind of new thing. So how much of it is you sitting on your own, making it happen, and how much does collaboration still play a role?
I really love collaboration. Usually, kind of my songwriting process, I'm usually by myself. I am not very good at expressing my emotions, which is quite funny because my songs are very much about that. So it's almost like my journal, and I don't really, when I'm writing, I don't really think like who's gonna hear this, or that people are going to find out something about me, because it's kind of just a personal moment for myself. And then after I've written it, depending how much or how little I've done, like production wise, I usually have a team I work with, 2 guys, Jack and Brad, and they run a studio out of Coogee, and we usually kind of work a lot together on production and all that kind of stuff later, after I've kind of built, I guess, the groundwork. So it is a lot about collaboration with me. I love it.
You mentioned that, your difficulty in expressing emotion in real life, and that music is sort of an outlet for that. So how important is the transparency and unfiltered emotion to you when you're making your work?
It's really important. I think that's what I find I gravitate towards, with the music that I listen to, and the music that I've fallen in love with and kind of take inspiration from. The albums and the songs and all, like the artists themselves, I guess, always have something to say, and it's what I gravitate towards, which is why I think I also write in that sort of way. I just think it's really important that we all have something to say. I think that everyone does have their own perspective, and it's really important to hear kind of every aspect of what people are going through.
No, for sure. I think that's a beautiful thing that you've found music is that way too. Yeah, and it's so important. I mean, people would tune into the lyrics and really resonate with them as well, I imagine. I mean, when I was listening, I was like, wow, this hits something for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad. That's kind of like my main purpose, my main goal, really, for someone to connect to it.
And you've mentioned that you find yourself aligning yourself with the artists that you find have a lot of meaning and depth in their lyrics. So you've cited some bands like the Japanese House and Haim as influences on your work. So how do you feel you go about drawing on other artists when you're listening to music and then writing your own?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's funny, when I'm kind of in the moment when I'm writing, I'm not necessarily thinking about, artists or making it sound a certain way. I think that comes a lot into play when I'm in a studio and when we're kind of producing the track. That's a really big part then. But again, sometimes I'll hear a song and I've maybe heard it for the 200th time. It's just me replaying it over and over again. And I hear a guitar part, like a guitar riff that I really love. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. You could make a variation of that, or you could make something that's, the same sort of strumming pattern. So it really kind of depends, and it changes all the time. And it's never the same. It's very bizarre for me.
Cool. So you mentioned that a lot of that inspiration comes in later in the production and recording piece. So when you first start writing a song, what does your process look like? Is it just you with the guitar? How do you start?
Yeah, basically it's kind of in this room, and I have a guitar, and usually I'll be playing something that sounds familiar. I'll be playing maybe like an older song, or like an unreleased song that will never see the light of day. Like I'll find what's comfortable, and depending on what mood I'm in, it kind of then just moves along with that. I like to find usually a melody first, so I'll hum along with it. I'll try to find something that's catchy, and then kind of build upon that. Because I find that if I'm liking what I'm hearing, it's inspiring me to write more, I guess, and dive more into the song. Sometimes I can't get it and I just leave it, and I move on. But it's it's a big process, me being with my guitar and just a book in front, and I'm just writing, scribbling, scratching out words, and then it kind of somehow forms into a full song.
Well, this has happened with your new single, Beat Up Car, which, as we mentioned, at the time recording, comes out tomorrow, which is Very exciting. So can you tell us a little bit about what the song means to you?
Yeah. Beat Up Car is a funny one actually. I hadn't it's one of the songs where I didn't write on my own. I had a therapy session one morning, and later I was meant to go into the studio and have a writing session with a producer. His name is Luca. I believe his artist name is Neptune, that he performs under. And prior to the writing session, at my therapy session, it was still quite new. I was testing out the waters, I guess, with this therapist. And I find it always very awkward to when they ask like, "What do I do?" I find it very awkward for some reason to say that I'm a musician. Maybe because I feel like I haven't got these like huge accolades to show and to present, to be like, oh yes, I'm a musician. Look at this. Look at what I've done. I kind of am very hard on myself in that way. So yeah, I kind of went into this writing session being like, I'm in this really weird headspace. I have no idea, kind of what I'm doing, and just flailing around. Um, and then, yeah, it kind of just started coming out about me going to therapy, um, talking about my feelings and what I do and this and that. And then kind of in the back of my mind, I was hearing my mum's voice, and she's a huge supporter of mine. She has probably gotten me to where I am in terms of my music career just by pushing me and believing in me. And so I kind of just subconsciously was just writing as if she was like speaking to me, like one of our conversations that we have. Um, and so, yeah, then it kind of turned into, it turned from this unknown kind of weird in between feeling that this weird relationship that I have with music and my kind of journey with music, and then kind of turning into, hey, like, you're doing okay. Like you're doing what you love. You are writing really cool songs. You're working with really cool people. Like it's a really cool experience. And then I kind of just came up with this really awesome song that I now love.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that process. We would love to know what you're excited about when people hear this track for the first time.
Yeah, I'm just so excited for people to hear this. I guess new side of me. I think this song in particular and the songs that will follow are very new and very where I am. I guess right now, personally, like musically, all that kind of stuff. That it's all the songs that I have out currently on streaming services are quite old, and I had written them in a time where I was figuring, myself out, and I was around people that didn't necessarily accept who I was or wanted me to be a certain way. So I'm really excited to have this be kind of my story, I guess, in a real truthful way. It feels really honest, and I'm just really excited for all the things that are coming up and the sound that it's kind of evolving into.
Cool. Well, that's exciting that this kind of marks the beginning of a new era in your storytelling. What does this track maybe represent in what's to come in future songs?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I've got quite a lot coming, which I'm really excited for. I think this song is, and why I chose this song to be kind of the first of this new venture, just with what it represents. It's kind of like a good starting point for me to be like, this is what you've worked at already, and this is what you can continue to work at if you just build upon. I just think it's a really good foundation for me mentally. Like I almost trick myself in ways that that I don't really see necessarily until I do them. And so, yeah, this song is a really good starting point for me, to kind of release what I am releasing, and believing in that, and trusting the process and all that kind of stuff.
We wanted to backtrack a little bit to your last two singles, Swim and 21.
Yeah.
And wondering, how was it to get back into the flow of music after releasing those two singles?
Yeah. It was hard, honestly. It was a bit difficult, only because the way that obviously I view my songs is always going to be very different to someone hearing it for the first time. I always forget, that someone is hearing this for the first time, even though I've, had it sitting with me for maybe 8+ years. Like it's going to be very different for everyone. And yeah, because I was in such a different headspace writing those two songs, it was kind of very difficult for me to almost get around it and move forward in terms of like promoting the song and being positive about it, quite honestly. But it is a part of my journey and where I've come from, and that's kind of where I ended up. Before releasing them, they are two very special songs, and were written through a time that were very hard, but also very like formative for me. Obviously 21 was written when I was 21, or just about to turn 21. And I'm definitely far from 21 now. But it was quite funny, because then you look at Swim, and Swim was really kind of, I can hear myself wanting to push through the noise and wanting to really break through, finding myself and who I was. So yeah, it's definitely part of the journey, which is where I ended up, knowing that it was part of the journey, and that it was all worth it, really.
Lovely. And aside from, putting out music as an artist, you also have your another creative project on the side, which is your acoustic series on YouTube, which is a fun mix of originals and covers of artists such as Missy Higgins, who you mentioned earlier, and the 975. Does recording covers require flexing a different creative muscle that maybe helps take a step back from the recording of your own music?
Yeah, absolutely. Those were a really exciting thing for me to do, almost because it wasn't my own music, almost because it was, I got to be creative in a way that wasn't so serious, I guess, because it wasn't, I wasn't so attached to it, and I wasn't so, okay, this is how it's going to have to be, and this is how it has to sound, and this is what you have to write about. So, yeah, I think it's a very, it helps my creative process, I guess, more, which is how, like, as I was mentioning before, when I write songs, like usually I'll start with a cover, or I'll start with, something like an idea, and it just kind of gets me out of my head, and not really thinking too much or too seriously about what, I'm trying to do. Because at the end of the day, music is meant to be fun. Everyone loves it. It's universal. Like it needs to be enjoyed. So I always need to remind myself to stop taking everything so seriously. But yeah, the cover series was a really good experience for me to kind of be very creative, and sing my favorite songs in maybe a different way, or kind of strip them back to a way that people haven't heard before.
Yeah, awesome. Well, speaking of enjoying music, you have a free gig this Saturday at Rambling Rascal, where you're going to be celebrating the release of Beat Up Car. So how are you preparing for this gig?
Uh, Good question. A lot of overthinking, that's for sure.
Perfect.
Yes, in fine fashion. But no, it's actually really, really exciting. I've played at Rambling Rascal before, and it's a great venue. The people there are lovely, and they always get a good turnout. It's such an awesome venue to play at. I had a rehearsal, one last rehearsal tonight with the band, so that's really exciting. But yeah, it's just kind of running through the set, isn't it? It's just it's getting those finer details kind of massaged out, and yeah, it's now the trouble is what I'm going to wear. That's what I always have trouble with.
Most important part.
Literally.
What should audiences expect going to your live shows?
A lot of energy. I have a fantastic band. I have built a kind of small community that I really trust within these people. And in turn, they pull out a show. Like they really love to play music. And it's quite funny because they're all in very like different fields. And in terms of music, we're all, even though we have a lot of similarities, we're all in very different spots, I guess. I have some very talented musicians playing with me. So they really help when I'm putting on a show build this almost sort of community that, because we're all so different and we look different and we act different, it's a really inviting kind of place. And yeah, it's just a fun time. I have so much fun with those guys. So I think from what I've noticed in the past, audiences really pick up on that, and they really love just seeing, just seeing everyone get into it so much. So it's a really good time. It's a really good time.
100%. When you can tell the band's having fun, it's so much easier in the crowd to just really get into it and have a good night. With that being said, what's been one of your favorite experiences playing live?
Honestly, I've had a very, very different, very, I guess, changing experience with performing live. I'm quite a shy person, and which is why I've always hidden behind bands. I have really just loved kind of finding myself, I guess, through music and taking the opportunity to show people who I really am, I guess. I guess at first glance, I kind of seem very serious and very kind of meticulous about things. And now that I've become more comfortable, like on a stage or with a crowd, like people will come up to me afterwards and be like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were like so funny." And I was like, "Oh, I'm really not. I just like when I get so in my head, it just comes out in, I guess, awkwardness or like sarcasm." So yeah, it's honestly been really fun kind of just navigating this path, I guess, so of
Awesome.
finding
Wow.
myself on stage.
We wrap
really.
up each Unitunes interview by asking for you to add 2 songs to our Unitunes playlist. One that's your own and one that is a song from one of your other favorite Aussie artists. So what songs are you going to give us?
Okay, well, I'm going to give you Beat Up Car. I feel like I have to give you that. And for an Aussie artist, this is really hard because I listen to a lot of Australian artists. I really love an artist called Kat Edwards. Her song Damaged Goods is one of my favorites. So I'm either going to put that one or Something You Were Trying by Phoebe. It's Phoebe Go by, it's like 2 songs that I have on repeat. And I don't know if I can pick between the 2, but it's going to be one of those. So actually, no, I'm going to say Kat Edwards. I think Damaged Goods has been really good to listen to.
Well, before we send you off, what can we expect from you, Ali, in this next year?
A lot of music. It's almost going to be bombarding, I think, coming from releasing. I think I was almost releasing 1 song a year, my last 4 singles. This year I have another single coming out following Beat Up Car, and then I will be releasing like a body of work. So it's going to be a lot of music, which I'm really, really excited for.
Exciting times. All right, well, Ali, we can't wait to hear the music that's on the way. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Ali. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all, folks.
Thank you for listening to